Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the COVID Long Haulers podcast. We're a community of COVID long haulers who have been brought together by this illness and wanted to create this resource for other long haulers. We share the stories of folks who have been through it, who are going through it, and how they're surviving it. My name is Rush, and I'm co-hosting today with Jessie and Emerson.
Today's episode is a little different. Instead of speaking with a COVID long hauler, we're talking with Elly from Scotland, who's been living with ME/CFS for nearly 10 years. Since May is ME Awareness Month and today, May 12th, is ME Awareness Day, we thought it was the perfect time to have this conversation.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not be familiar, ME/CFS stands for Myalgic Encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome. And ME/CFS is a complex, debilitating condition that presents with symptoms in multiple body systems that is often triggered by infections, and today most commonly by COVID infections. People with ME experience extreme fatigue that isn't relieved by rest, and also other symptoms like brain fog, unrefreshing sleep, and something that is called post-exertional malaise, which we often refer to as PEM, where even a minor activity can lead to a severe symptom crash that can last for days or even months. It's a condition that has been underrecognized for years, and now with the rise of long COVID, more people are developing it and finally beginning to understand just how life-altering it can be. We're excited to hear from your insights today, Elly. Welcome to the show.
Hi there, I'm Elly. I'm in my 50s and I'm a teacher.
What was your life like before you got ill?
Yeah, I mean, I was busy. I had a full-time job. I did lots of extras at work. I had lots of interests, so I used to travel. I was away lots of weekends. I did lots of outdoor activities, and I was very sociable. So I spent a lot of time with family, with friends, doing things, traveling between places to see them all. And I would work in the evenings, or I would have the energy to go out and do sociable things. And I could just push on and keep going. And if I had deadlines, I would meet them. Yeah, it was very different when I got ill, and that's what made it like just, yeah, your life just gets turned upside down and you can't understand why you can't do these things anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you've been living with ME/CFS for quite a while now. How long has it been for you?
Nearly 10 years now.
Wow.
I mean, thankfully, I'm so much better than I was.
And do you know what caused your ME/CFS for you, or do you suspect something that caused it? What was the beginning?
I think with all these things, it's probably more complex than you realize, and it might have been growing
Yeah.
for years, but you have no idea. So basically, about 10 years ago, I just got a summer cold. That was it. I'd had lots of colds throughout my life. I'd always got over them. They weren't nice at the time, but you knew within, with a few days or a week or two, then you'd be back to normal. And this time, I just didn't really get that much better. So, the usual sore throat, runny nose, feeling a bit tired, had a cough, but, it should all go away. And that was the thing, was it just didn't. And I had no understanding, went back to work, was off ill again, was back to work, was off ill again, and just didn't understand what was wrong. And it was just not shifting. That was all I knew at the time. It just wasn't going away as it should have done.
So you would have developed ME/CFS before there was really any understanding of the condition in wider society, I suspect. I mean, we all know what it is, or most of us know what it is at this point, having dealt with COVID and the after effects of long COVID. But when you developed it, there really wasn't that awareness at all. So, what was your experience getting diagnosed? How did you go about getting that diagnosis?
Went to the doctor because I needed to be off longer than I could be off without needing a sick note, and just explained, it wasn't going away. So the doctor was really understanding, really nice, gave me antibiotics, did a few blood tests, told me to come back in a week if I wasn't feeling better. And normally that would have been sufficient. And I just kept having to go back and say, I'm not that much better. And then they would ramp up slowly, doing more and more tests. So the only thing that really came back positive was that I was anemic. So I thought, oh, that's great. Once I've got the anemia under control, then yeah, I'll be back to normal. And it helped a little bit. I just wasn't getting better. In fact, I actually then started to get worse. And the doctor did even more tests, but everything was coming back within normal-ish ranges. There was nothing that really could be treated out of it. And I just felt like, I don't know what I felt like. It was just, you were flummoxed because There was nothing coming back that would explain what was wrong with you. And it was only a cold, so you should be getting better. So that was quite a challenge, and it took a long, long time. The most I got initially was that it was post-viral fatigue. Of course, you then go home and you Google it, and it's like, oh, that's not very nice. And oh, look, it can turn into ME, which I really didn't know much about at the time. And it took probably about 6 months to eventually get diagnosed. And it's only when I asked, so what actually is wrong with me? They then told me that, well, it's ME, as if, didn't you know? When, you have so many other things going through your head about what it might be. And I'd also traveled quite a lot in developing world countries. I'd also been bitten by a tick, so I was wondering if it was something related to that, but it may have been, it may not have been.
Like, it took you 6 months for them to say, well, obviously it's ME, but it sounds like they had to do a diagnosis of exclusion a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, until they found something that they knew they could treat. I guess they couldn't give me a diagnosis because it might have been something else. It might have been something even worse.
I wanted to go back to something you said earlier when you said, I kept getting worse. Can you talk about what you were feeling at that time?
Yeah, it was headaches. I didn't used to get a lot of headaches, and if I had a headache, I kind of knew why I had it. So I had a headache that basically didn't go away. It was like a permanent headache, and it was migraine like. I mean, at some points it was so crushing that I just wanted to chop my head off, metaphorically. I went to a friend's wedding and I had to go and find a room and lie down in it, and the awful thing is a barman came in looking for something and saw this guest lying on the floor, he possibly thought passed out. And I was just lying there with the booming music, just going, please stop, please stop, please stop, because I couldn't get home until I had my lift. So yeah, it was just that was one thing. And also I couldn't concentrate. My brain was always busy, always active. I was very busy at work, having to think about a myriad of things at the same time. And I was trying to do some work and I just couldn't focus on it. I would forget words, I couldn't finish some sentences, I lost my train of thought. So I thought, oh, am I developing dementia? And just the exhaustion, I couldn't sleep. And then when I did sleep, I couldn't wake up. My sleep was completely wrecked, and I felt really badly hungover every single morning, and I wasn't drinking anything.
Yes. Yeah.
We all know that feeling of feeling poisoned. Like, feel like you've been poisoned and you're like, how can I flush this out of me?
Yes.
And then you can't.
Yeah, and the least little thing that you were doing, hanging up the washing, and I would just feel this whoosh of, I couldn't even describe it at the time, but I just felt this whoosh, and then just the complete and utter drainedness. So I'd try and finish hanging up the washing, and then go back and lie down for an hour or 2 or 3, or until I had to do something else. And it's just like, why was that so exhausting?
Yeah. That sounds really tough. A lot of our listeners will really empathize with that feeling.
Yeah.
This kind of experience is very common for folks with ME. Actually, the official diagnostic criteria for ME explains that severity is measured by how much your activity level drops compared to before you got sick. Mild ME means losing about half of your old energy. Moderate usually means that you're mostly housebound. And severe means mostly bedridden, and very severe means totally bedridden and needing help with basic functions.
You said booming music. Were there sensory issues where you're like, oh, it's too bright, it's too loud, I need to just go lock myself away?
Yeah, and again, I'd never had that before. I think I'd had one migraine where I had something like that once in my life, and that was it. But yeah, my hearing was very overly sensitive, and my eyes would feel sore if it was too bright, even though being outside was, meant to be good for you, getting your vitamin D and so on. It was very, very bright, and I had sore eye sockets as well. And again, that was something that never really had before. You just felt basically like a zombie. Like my friends described it as, it's like somebody's pulled the plug out of you, or it's like you're dead, but we know you're not. But it's like you just weren't you anymore, because you didn't have the energy and ability to do that when it was really bad. Yeah, and that's the hardest thing, is that you are you, but you just can't be it.
And you miss
it's
it.
all the sparkle. Yeah, the sparkle, the fun, the energy, the liveliness, all these things, you just don't have the energy to do them, or if you do, it exhausts you. You just want to sit there and be with the company, but you just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so tiring. Yeah.
Socializing for me is still today the most exhausting thing. Like I can go for half-hour walks with my dog, but talking to people, it's just it takes your entire body. Like physically you have to sit there, that's exhausting. Then you have to listen, you have to like process what the person's telling you, you have to concentrate, you have to form words and respond. It's just like your entire body has to work together, and it's so difficult when you have ME to do that.
And it's probably the hardest thing to think about, because before
Yeah.
it was so natural. And, I used to get a buzz from,
Yeah.
doing all these things and seeing all these people. And, it energized me. And for it to suddenly be such a draining thing, it's like your world's
Yeah.
turned topsy-turvy.
And it doesn't change your need for that social
Yeah.
support either. Like it's like, I need my friends, I need my family, I need people, but I can't look at them or listen to them. Like I need the support and the community, but I can't actually participate. Just a really weird and sad experience.
Yeah.
ME and long COVID just don't get the attention they deserve. ME
Yeah.
alone affects an estimated 15 to 30 million people worldwide, but 80 to 90% of cases go undiagnosed. The quality of life for people with ME is worse than almost any other illness. It's more disabling than MS, heart failure, or cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is wild to me. And
Hmm.
even though ME leaves a bigger mark on quality of life than cancer or heart failure, it gets almost no research funding. It's wild. The economic cost is huge, around 18 to 24 billion dollars a year in the US alone, and it's been totally ignored. To give you an idea, ME/CFS gets about $14 per patient per year in funding. If it were treated like asthma or HIV, it would get more than 10 times that amount.
Wow. I was Googling ME/CFS in preparation for this episode, and it's actually defined as a relapsing remitting condition, meaning that the symptoms fluctuate over time. One day you're doing better than the other, or even it can be like a couple of months where you're doing really well, and then after that you can get really, really sick again. Which is why this idea of like, oh, you could show up to this, you were able to do that today, is such a stupid way to decide how functioning a person is.
What's
Yeah.
interesting there, Emerson, is I had a conversation with an insurance agent not too long ago who's responsible for hiring private investigators to go and track down people who are claiming benefits and see if they're really entitled to them. Like, are they as sick as they seem? And I was trying to explain to him that people with ME/CFS, they can have good days and they can have bad days. So if your private investigator is peering through the window or whatever it is they do on one of the days where they're actually able to function, it's not indicative of their wider capabilities. And just getting that through to him, he just assumed that all people were work shy in that situation, but it's really a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what people find difficult, because they think when they see you like that, then, oh, you're better.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm better right now. When I really wasn't well, I had to not do much in order to be able to see the person that afternoon. And then, yes, I didn't know if I'd be okay after it, or if I'd need to go to bed, or if I'd have a crushing headache, or, you don't know what's going to follow on from it. And it could last hours, minutes, days, like you say, weeks sometimes. And that was that
Yeah.
was really challenging. When you think you are better, and it's like, oh, good, I'm getting there. And then it's temporary.
And then it tricks
Yeah.
you. You're like, I'm healed. And then you're like, nope, I'm not.
And a friend who did a lot of research, for me, she was described it as teaspoonfuls of sugar. So you've got 10 teaspoons of sugar, which is your energy for the day, and how are you going to use them? So, if your teaspoon allows you only to do, washing the dishes and then you have to sit down, well, that's a teaspoonful of energy you've used. So you have to rest up, and then, you have those. But as you get better, then your teaspoon of energy allows you to do more each day. And that was actually something that was probably it made me think quite a lot about, okay, so actually I can do one big thing or I can do 10 little things. And, as time went on, thankfully for me, I was able to start doing more per teaspoon of sugar. But
Yeah.
it was a novel concept. And I think actually possibly what does help us is if we don't use all 10 in the day, and then the rest of that energy is what your body can use to heal
Yeah.
itself. And that took me so long to understand because I just
Mhm.
wanted to be better, I just wanted to be doing things, just want to be back
Yeah.
at work.
So, Elly, what did a typical day look like for you when you were at your sickest?
Ooh, in some ways it's weird because my brain's almost forgotten. So I actually had to sit and write some of these things down because
Okay.
thankfully I've forgotten how bad it was, which is good for when you do recover, you forget the worst part. So I mean, it was the waking up feeling utterly hungover, really struggling to get out of bed. The bathroom's downstairs, so I had to physically get down there every day and then just stay down there because I was too tired. Quite often I didn't get out of my pajamas. And yeah, the migraines, if I did too much, were just awful. So I just had to lie there and just shut everything out. And I was living on my own at that point in time, so I didn't even have anybody to do anything for me. I had to do it myself. So any cooking, cleaning, washing, I had to do it or just not bother. And you were kind of wired but tired during the day as well, which was a strange thing. It was almost like you were on caffeine overload, but with the caffeine headache, but you just couldn't really do much.
Yeah.
My thermoregulation was all completely out of kilter. I was freezing, I was overheating. Yeah, that was bizarre. I mean, when I was at my worst, I would go down and have a shower about once a week. That was all right. Nobody was there to smell it apart from me or the cat. And I would sit down after drying myself or while I was drying myself, and then I would sit there for a while. And then sometimes I had to crawl upstairs on my hands and knees because I couldn't actually walk upstairs because the shower had exhausted me. And then, I would try and dry my hair sitting down or sometimes just not bother. And then wait till I felt better to go back downstairs again. Anything I would love to do, I could try and do it for a little while, but you just couldn't really do it for any great length of time. And it was just like you being zapped by something that sucked away so much of what you were able to do and ultimately who you were as well, which was quite disturbing and quite worrying.
Yeah. I remember thinking, like, before illness, did I ever have to think, am I able to get up to use the bathroom right now? For someone who was able before, you can't even fathom that if you haven't experienced it. Like, you just do things like you did before your illness.
Yeah,
Even if you didn't have the energy, you would go about your day and you'd
Mm.
find it somehow. You'd get more of it.
yeah,
And now it's
yeah,
like, I just woke up, but I don't think I can even make it to the bathroom on my own. It's just the weirdest thing. And so when your world has gone that collapsed,
yeah.
it is heartbreaking to think of everything else, like the basics you can't even do, so everything else has suffered.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And everybody else carries on their daily life and tells you all the fun things they're still doing.
Yeah,
And when are you going to come and join us again?
would love to.
That's so hard to deal with. Yeah.
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 I'm quite curious as to, because obviously you went through this at a time where there wasn't that awareness. Were you able to connect with other people that were going through what you were going through and sort of share your experiences the way? Because we're able to do that through the long COVID community because there's such a massive awareness
Yeah.
of long COVID. It's quite
Yeah.
easy to connect with other people that have the issues that you have. But I'm just curious if you had that sort of access, if you had any people or support networks that you were able to bounce ideas off of and try and figure stuff out.
No, I didn't really connect with people. Partly I wasn't able to, partly I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know anybody really who'd had it properly. So I guess I did a bit of online searching and discovered there was the ME Association, but there was a branch locally that I could have gone to, but by the point in time that I found out about it, I didn't really want to go and meet people who were in the same situation or a worse situation than I was because I was improving a bit by then. So I just started trying to check things online and use my personal and family and friends support network, but that shrinks quite a lot when you're ill and you're ill long term because you some friends are friends and some are forever friends.
Yeah, it's almost like you have a contagious, non-communicable disease sometimes whenever you get chronically ill. Like you have a lot of people around you whenever you're able, but then whenever you're not able, that circle gets a lot smaller and you realize who the people are that are
Yeah,
the ride or
they're the
die.
wonderful ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was helpful, like in terms of coping strategies or treatments?
Yeah, I mean, I was, well, I think anybody who feels that ill for that long is going to try lots of things because you just
Mhm.
want something to do that will help you. And I mean, the doctor is absolutely lovely, but she said, there is no treatment. There's nothing that's a cure for you. We've done the things that we can for the anemia and the actual infection, but beyond that, it's really just time and, taking it easy. And that gets a bit wearing after a while.
Yeah.
And doing what you can do, doing things that are good and positive, and all that's lovely. And but at the same time, you just want to get better. So I did try homeopathy, and I am pretty convinced that definitely helped get me up a good level. I also tried. A friend was training to be a naturopath, so she wanted to use me as a case study for her training. So she, did a detailed assessment verbally of all the things that had happened in my life health-wise until then, and put me on a very restricted diet. So no gluten, no sugar, no dairy, no alcohol, no caffeine. And it's just like, well, what can I eat? And then I got supplements and vitamins and, the varied diet without all of these things to try and reduce any toxins or whatever it was in my body. And that definitely helped too. My headaches definitely reduced during that period. So they didn't go away entirely, but the crushing migraines definitely subsided during that. And then obviously, slowly reintroducing all these foods afterwards, so that I could continue to eat a varied diet without it being so exclusive. And I read about the exercise, but there was quite mixed
Mhm.
information about it. And because I used to be really fit and healthy, that I still stayed relatively fit to begin with, but then I lost it when I was really ill. And then, when you're walking a short distance and your legs, your muscles, the lactic acid builds up. And, normally that would be like if you'd were trying to walk far too fast up a hill or had done a long run or something. Yeah, and that would start so quickly. And then you'd have to either carry on with the pain or stop and rest to recover to
Yeah.
do the next bit. So I did try to keep exercising and moving because I didn't want to lose all my strength. But again, quite often after doing it or during it, it was I didn't feel well, or it would exhaust me for the next few days.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other good things are, I think, started reading positive stories about recovery rather than reading about all the symptoms and all the awfulness and people who were bedridden for years. And, my best friend phoned me most days trying to have a nice chat. And, she would actually plug me on the table on her phone on video call, and I would eat dinner with them,
Oh,
which was really sweet. And my partner was, again, not living nearby, but he would be in touch every day. And I think having some social contact, even if it wasn't for long, was really important, that you still exist, you're still
yeah.
important, and actually people still care about you, even though
Yes.
you're not quite the you that you used to be. And that was massive. People who are living in a family situation at least have people that they see every day, but when you're living on your own, you don't. And yeah, to suddenly, from seeing people almost every single day, lots of people in your job, then nobody, that's quite hard. So, having, brilliant people like that who were in touch and never ever gave up on you, that's really important.
I'm so
Um,
happy you had that. That's so valuable.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't think those people maybe even can see how much it meant to you,
Mhm.
because without them, yeah, you're feeling awful, but then you're also feeling emotionally awful on top of it. And also, I read Mitochondria, Not Hypochondria by Dr. Sarah Myhill, and that was quite interesting. So I tried some of the things that she'd been suggesting.
So, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I think it's just been very slow and gradual. A lot of it has been rest and allowing my body to recover. I did go back to work and I went back part-time because I'd become well enough at that point in time to do it, and then ended up taking some more time off because family circumstances changed, and my husband was working abroad. He'd become my husband by then. And then COVID happened, and surprisingly for me, COVID was a really good thing because I was stuck at home with the cat and nothing to do, nobody else could do anything. And because everybody was kind of trapped, people, yes, they were working if they could do or had to, but I had nothing to do. So I started exercising a little bit more and, did the Joe Wicks, because he was doing his PE for all the kids every day in the UK. So I did that, and I didn't do much to begin with, but that ever so slowly built me up more and more and more. And it gave my body a chance to focus on very little, apart from a little bit of exercise, a little bit of chat, the odd Zoom, talking to my neighbour over the hedge and so on. And that was another stage of me improving to another level. So that did help. And now I'm back to work part-time. That seems to be working well long term.
So interesting that while the world is getting sicker and trying to avoid this contagious virus that's sweeping around the globe, it's actually been beneficial to you in your health journey to get that sort of time to yourself and the rest that you needed on your recovery.
Yeah, I know. And, I was probably very paranoid about catching COVID because I knew that it could really set me back. And because I was feeling so much better, I, double masked and I avoided people. I followed all the rules, and people, I'm sure, laughed because I was, overly cautious. But then they hadn't experienced what I'd experienced.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to avoid having a major relapse because, I was improving all the time at that point in time. So I wanted to stay on that improvement, or at least at that level. I did catch it, and I was quite sick with it the first time round. I had my first 3 vaccinations and I caught it eventually, and yeah, I wasn't well. But it lasted, the fatigue and so on, lasted several weeks, I would say, but I did get better from it. And then I caught it a second time, and I was only ill for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Again, I wasn't working at that point in time, so my body had a chance to recover because I wasn't trying to get back to work and do everything that I felt I ought to be doing. So I just allowed myself the chance to just recover.
Yeah, there has been some science that proves that you're more likely to develop long COVID or just lingering symptoms, post-COVID conditions, if you do not rest as much as you should during the acute infection. So I think that's a massive issue that a lot of people just go to work with COVID and then all of a sudden they have these lingering symptoms, fatigue and POTS and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, it's your fault that you developed long COVID, but there's this massive stigma in society that, oh, you stayed home whilst you had the cold, can you have come to work? But it's actually harmful that you go to work whilst you're actively ill.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, 90% of people, it won't actually end up making them seriously long-term ill. So it's fine for them, but you don't know if you're one of that 10%.
Yeah.
Or whatever percent. I don't know if it's 10% or whatever, but I read something where there was a graph and there was like 100% of people that catch a cold, which is what I did, and 90% will recover within 3 months or less. Of that 10%, 90% of those will recover after that. And it's only about the 1% that will then develop the ME. So you've no idea until it hits you that you are that 1%.
Yeah.
And that 1% is real. Like you were saying, oh, people might have thought I was paranoid or overkill, but they didn't experience what I experienced. That is exactly how I felt in the last couple of years, that I will do anything to avoid another infection because this has completely destroyed my life. And if they felt what you had gone through, what so many are experiencing, it wouldn't matter that it was a 1% chance. Like there's other things that we choose to avoid because the fallout is so great, even if the risk is low. It is such a serious disability to be shut down and not able to provide for yourself, not be able to bathe regularly, just do regular things. So is it that crazy for people to be careful after they've experienced that? I don't think so. I think we're the sane ones.
Yeah, and that statistic that you mentioned, Elly, that was pre-pandemic. So the risk of developing ME has risen since. In the past 5 years, there has been a 15-fold increase of ME/CFS cases. So approximately 4.5% of those who've had COVID-19 meet the diagnostic criteria for ME/CFS at least 6 months after their acute infection has passed, compared to just 0.6% of those who never had COVID. And nearly 89% of those who've been diagnosed with ME/CFS after COVID also meet the general criteria for long COVID. This really just shows how closely intertwined these two conditions are and why so many of us now view even a single viral infection as a serious risk to our health.
I think every time you get an illness, every time you get COVID, Every time you get something that's, you know, quite serious, you're rolling the dice as to what your recovery is going to look like. And for some of us who got long COVID, we rolled snake eyes, you know, and it's the same with people who develop ME or CFS. You've rolled a one on that dice, and now your life is probably forever going to be different. So it completely reshapes what your perspective and your attitude is towards other illnesses and people who have dealt with this sort of condition before. I've learned that your immune system is not like a muscle. It doesn't get better from repeated use. It doesn't
Thank
get
you.
stronger. It actually gets weaker. The more you're exposed to illnesses, the more damage you do to your body. Now, your body can recognize that it's got the same illness again and respond faster to that illness, but that doesn't mean that it's not doing damage at the same time. So people need to move away from this, oh yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger mentality.
Specifically viruses.
Yeah, it's really not good for you to get viruses. So please keep that in mind.
You can find out more about this in our previous episode, The Invisible Damage of COVID-19.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well, though, because when long COVID was becoming a thing, I posted some article on one of my social media, and I put it on about ME being very similar to long COVID, and trying to warn people, just be careful if you do catch it, or try and avoid it if you can, because I know that it's really not fun. And it's amazing how few likes or comments that article that I forwarded got. It's almost like nobody really wanted to see it, or nobody wanted to respond to it, because I was getting better. So clearly that was all good. And other things that I posted, it's a picture of the cat lazing in the sun, and I've got lots of likes or comments.
It's an inconvenient truth. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to have to deal with that, so I will not engage with it until you're one of us. And then I wish I would have protected myself, or I wish I would have known, or I wish someone would have told me that this is what was waiting.
Yeah, but sadly, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We don't know until it's too late.
What are the sort of misconceptions, would you say, that people have about ME, CFS, and what can be done, what more can be done, shall I say, to raise the awareness of the condition?
People just think that you should be able to just get over it quickly. They think that you should just be able to push on through it like you've always done in the past, and what's wrong with you? Just buck up, get on with it. Why can't you go back to work? You look fine today. You met somebody for coffee, that's great. So, you should be back at work next week. I think a lot of people think that you're faking it, or you should be better by now, and they want a recovery timescale. Like if you have a broken leg, they want you to have, surely there's some treatment you can get, for cancer, there's X, Y, and Z. So, and they're like, well, there's nothing that was available for me. There was no rheumatologist in the area. There was the homeopath that the GP may have sent me to. They had recently had the funding pulled from them. So really it was up to you. And, I was lucky that I had savings, but other people might not have, and you can't afford any of these private therapies to see if they will help. And so, people, they don't understand what you're going through. And I didn't either. I didn't know what ME was until I finally knew that's what I had. I don't think until you have an illness, you actually can fully understand it. But a lot of people just think, well, I get headaches too. It's like, yeah, but do you want to chop your head off on a daily basis?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you've said already. Oh, but I get tired too. And it's just like, yeah, but are you so tired that climbing the stairs is almost beyond what you can do at that moment in time?
Pathological tiredness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like I'm constantly jet lagged.
There is a hard limit. There is a hard limit, and I cannot go past that. And there is no amount of willpower that can get you out of that cage the way that we used to do things, right? Oh, I'm tired, but I'm going to push through. That is not possible. I'm just saying it right here. I'm saying it for the world. It is not possible to push through when you have this kind of fatigue.
It just causes PEM, and then you're just sick again.
Or you
sicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can push through to a certain degree, but you know that you're going to suffer afterwards. Yeah, and that's the awful bit, is because you want to do that thing. You want to enjoy that thing.
Do you think people are getting more understanding of the condition? Like his awareness of ME CFS, is it getting better as time goes by?
I genuinely think it's only because of long COVID.
It
Of,
only
of
takes a global pandemic that
Hmm.
affects everybody in the world for people to realize, oh, the condition you've been struggling with for the last decade is actually real.
But I think it's also partially because ME predominantly affects people assigned female at birth and women. 75 to 85% of people who have ME/CFS are women and people assigned female at birth. And we do observe there's this massive gender gap in medicine. And a lot of these conditions that predominantly affect people assigned female at birth are under-researched. And I think ME now is finally starting to affect people assigned male at birth, and that's why suddenly we care about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem for lots of chronic illness that it's very easy to dismiss people if you think that they're hysterical, if you think that they're hypochondriacs, if you think they're anxious. And it's really hard to dismiss a global pandemic, as Rush said. It's really hard to
Mhm.
dismiss when there are so many people suffering, and they still do it somehow. People are talented at dismissing. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's actually kind of a relief in some ways how much it affects a wide variety of people, even though it still is affecting that population more.
Hmm.
To see it affecting more people than just kind of the same that have always kind of been susceptible and vulnerable probably has helped the awareness for sure.
And I guess because more people were affected by it, then there has been a lot more funding for research that will have gone into it, and therefore it will link both of the illnesses together. And therefore, hopefully, there will be more treatments and more prevention if that's possible, so that fewer people actually do develop it in the long run.
Yeah, what I would love to see is actual acknowledgement that viruses are harmful.
Mhm.
That is something that we are
Yeah.
still not acknowledging because even if COVID disappeared, we would still have summer colds that cause ME. We would still
Mhm.
have flu that causes ME.
So while stuff was going on with long COVID, did you find yourself like listening to the news or watching TV or anything like that, and seeing
Yeah.
people talk about long COVID and the symptom pack? Because MECFS is just one sort of subtype, if you will, of long COVID that you can get. Did you find yourself sort of maybe even shouting at the television, "Yes, this is what I've been saying all along"? These viruses are out there, they can cause this condition, and now on a global scale people are starting to realize it. Was there sort of any vindication as to what you'd gone through happening?
Yeah, I watched it and was really intrigued by these, and so it's an awful thing for all the individuals concerned, but so happy that globally people are now going to be so much more aware of these things, and that it was very similar to what I had.
It's lovely to see someone who's come before us and has found a way out in terms of that it's not a permanent thing. I don't want to say that it's not a permanent thing for everyone because I think no one can really say that, right? We see people who have been struggling for years and years and years and in dark rooms, no sensory, cannot eat themselves with ME and long COVID. Those cases are terrifying. How you feel today is not how you will feel forever. You can potentially get some recovery back. And that is my goal in my own journey. And I think a lot of people feel like maybe I won't get 100%, but even if I get 10%, that is a win.
Yeah, yeah, and that's part of the reason that I agreed to do the podcast was because I thought, well, if I can give somebody some hope that actually, I've had it for 10 years, but now I live a reasonably normal life and I still have to pace. I still can't live at the speed that I used to live at, but I can still work, I can still socialize, I can still exercise, I can, I can go back to the outdoor activities that I used to enjoy, and I can do them now. And that is the most wonderful thing that I am so grateful for and so appreciative of. If I could let people believe that you can have an improvement in your life, and hopefully it'll just get better and better and better. And it might take a while, but at least you can get better, and you can get more of your own life and your personality back again.
Improvements definitely happen, sometimes in tiny steps, and it's not the straight line recovery people expect from other
Mhm.
illnesses, but it's still real and it's absolutely worth fighting for. But full recovery from ME is sadly really, really rare. Studies suggest only about 5 to 10% of people fully return to their old level of functioning. So for most people, it's about adapting, learning to live with fluctuating symptoms, and slowly rebuilding life within their new limits.
Yeah, and the chances of full recovery are even lower for people who have been severely or very severely affected by ME/CFS. So people who are bedbound, unable to, do basic functioning things like eat food, digest food, keep themselves alive, basically. And also, those who have been sick for a longer period of time without proper diagnosis or support also have a lower chance of full recovery. It's not that it's completely impossible, but it just takes longer and is much, much harder. And I think that is really, really heartbreaking because those are the people who need help the most.
Mhm.
I think that is actually really important because people who get the ME CFS subtype of long COVID typically have the longest recovery journeys of anyone who gets long COVID. And to see for them, they're watching people who get long COVID, different subtypes, get better and move on with their lives, while they're still, many of them are still languishing in this sort of funky limbo where they can't reconnect with the lives they once used to live. So I think actually your message is very hopeful to those people that it's not going to be like this forever, and there is a path to recovery, a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, because just don't lose you. Believe that you can get better, and any little thing that you do. I mean, I remember sitting just looking at, the bulbs popping up through the soil and turning into flowers in a few days' time, and it was sunny, and thinking, oh, this is beautiful. I can actually appreciate this because I'm not buzzing around, racing around, and I could plot how the bulbs were developing on a daily basis. And the company I had, my cat was great company as well. And, during COVID, that's a lot of what I talked about because her little funny antics. So any good things that you actually see and appreciate. I guess also that probably feeds back into the fact that if you are feeling more positive, then your body perhaps can then recover a bit more. I don't know if there's a direct link there or not, but
I think the
it doesn't
stress
matter.
for sure. I know through occupational therapy, my occupational therapist would say when your cortisol gets spiked, that is going to affect you. That is going to affect your energy. It's going to affect your immune system. And if you can get to a place where you do feel hopeful, where your stress is lower, I think that's a big win.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what kind of stress it is, if it's physical, if it's emotional, if it's
Yes.
situational, it doesn't matter because it exhausts you way more than it would have done in the past. So yeah, you just have to be careful with that. But yeah, and then try and reset with something positive, something to be happy about.
Finding joy every day is hard, but it's a good thing.
So, Elly, what kind of advice would you offer someone who is newly diagnosed with ME or long COVID?
I guess don't give up hope. Don't read too much of the negative, scary stuff. Just try anything that you can, and also let your friends and family know that you just need them to be there for you, even if you can't be very sociable, and just to believe what you're saying, that you're not making all of this up. Which some people think you are, and appreciate anything. Try any treatments that you think will make you feel better, meditation, massage, whatever, if you can afford it. But yeah, I think it's just don't give up hope and try and read or listen to the positive things and recovery stories rather than what might happen. Yeah, and also these days with there being so many more ways of being in touch with people, maybe I should have joined one of these groups somehow, and maybe I would have picked up on more things that would have made me recover faster. I don't know, but things like this podcast, any groups locally or online, yeah, that's if it gives you a way of connecting with people, that could just make you have more connection with the world and feel so much better, and maybe also learn things that you could try to make you better as well.
We're so grateful for you sharing your story with
Yeah,
us. MECFS folks have been our beacon.
yeah.
Just the support that y'all have shown us and all the advocacy that you had out the gate for us.
I think the mechanisms of our conditions are very, very similar, even if they do cause somewhat different symptoms. So I do think that, research in long COVID will benefit people with ME and vice versa. Research in ME will benefit people with long COVID.
I think whether you've got ME, CFS, or long COVID, having access to the stories of other people that have already lived through it is really important. And that's why we're so grateful to have you here, Elly. Your story matters. And I know it's going to give a lot of people hope.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Elly, for joining us on our podcast and sharing your experiences. We know it's going to resonate with a lot of people out there. As a reminder, while our discussions offer medical related insights, this is not medical advice. Always consult your healthcare team with any of your medical concerns. For our listeners interested in joining our Discord community, you can find a link in the description on how to connect with us. We aim to release these episodes monthly, recognizing that each person's experience with long COVID is unique. And while today's discussion with Elly may resonate with some, we acknowledge that the diversity of stories yet to be shared that will touch on completely different subjects. So please subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. And until next time, this is the COVID Long Haulers podcast signing off. See you on the next one.